Daughter kicks me from wedding, then demands I pay for it all. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. My daughter disinvited me from her wedding on Tuesday, then sent me the catering bill on Thursday. That sentence still looks fake when I read it back. My name is Daniel. I'm 59, and I've spent 34 years keeping city buses running. First with a wrench in my hand, now as a maintenance supervisor. It's not glamorous, but it's honest. People get to work because men like me do ours. I built my life around that kind of responsibility. I built my life around Chloe too. When Sandra and I divorced, Chloe was 9. Sandra created the polished version of stability. I handled the less photogenic one. School pickups in a grease-smelling uniform, packed lunches, emergency dentist bills, algebra meltdowns at my kitchen table, weekend overtime so Chloe could do dance, then soccer, then college without drowning in debt. I never had the kind of money that impresses people, but I showed up. Every recital, every conference, every emergency. So when Chloe got engaged to Grant, I thought maybe this was one of those milestones that heals old fractures. She cried when she showed me the ring and hugged me in the parking lot outside a steakhouse I couldn't really afford. Dad, she said, I want you with me through all of it. I carried that sentence longer than I should have. By Tuesday night, she was standing in my kitchen, arms folded, telling me in a calm voice that hurt worse than yelling. I think it's better if you don't come. Not postpone. Not cool off. Don't come. 2 days later, an email hit my inbox with the subject line, Final Catering Balance. $7,420. Chloe had forwarded it with one line beneath. Can you please handle this today, so there's no drama? No apology. No explanation. Just a bill. I sat at my small kitchen table with the screen glowing in my face and the coffee maker clicking uselessly beside me. My hands were shaking badly enough that I nearly dropped my phone when Marcus called. He's my older brother, the kind of man who can smell a lie before it opens its mouth. What happened? He asked. I tried to laugh. You ever get mugged by your own kid in formal wear? He went silent, then said, Danny, what exactly did Chloe tell you? To explain why that question gutted me, I have to explain Chloe before she became a bride with a seating chart and a talent for polite cruelty. When she was little, she used to wait by the window for my truck. I'd come home tired, and she'd already be at the door in mismatched socks, yelling, Dad, guess what happened today? Before I dropped my keys. After the divorce, Sandra was always reinventing herself. New apartment, new rules, new priorities. My place stayed the constant. Mine was the home with spaghetti sauce on the stove, a jar of quarters for laundry, and lights that always stayed on. One winter, Chloe got pneumonia in 6th grade while Sandra was out of town. I slept in a plastic chair beside her hospital bed, worked a double shift, then came back with a stuffed dog she named Muffin. She told a nurse, my dad fixes everything. I cried alone near a vending machine over that sentence because I wanted it to stay true forever. That's the version of us I kept replaying when wedding planning started. At first, Chloe acted like she wanted me involved. She sent me venue links, color palettes, and floral arches that cost more than my first car. I said what Dad say. Looks beautiful. If you love it, I love it. We'll figure out what I can help with. She teased me when I asked if people still threw rice. It felt easy. Then the tone shifted in ways small enough to excuse if you were desperate to keep peace. Replies got shorter. Group chats replaced calls. Plans changed after the fact. I heard about appointments from social media instead of from her. When I asked if she wanted me at the first venue tour, she texted, we're keeping it small. Later I saw photos with Grant's parents, Sandra, and Sandra's friend who has taste. Marcus noticed before I wanted to. He was helping me fix a leak under the sink when he said, she's managing your access. She's stressed, I said. She's selective, he answered. I defended Chloe because defending her had become muscle memory. You don't know her like I do. Marcus wiped his hands on a rag and gave me that older brother look. Maybe that's the problem, he said. You're still seeing the kid at the window. I wanted him to be wrong. Then Chloe flinched when I hugged her in front of Grant's mother. The first time I really thought something was off, it wasn't even because of the wedding. It was because of money, and because people get careless around money when they assume you won't question them. 3 months before the ceremony, Chloe asked to meet for coffee near her office. She arrived late, kissed my cheek without really landing it, and put a printed spreadsheet on the table. So, she said, bright as a hostess, we need to finalize who's covering what. I looked down. Flowers. Transportation. Catering overages. Dance lessons I had never agreed to. At the bottom, Dad contribution goal. Chloe, I said slowly. This is almost 20 grand. She smiled the way Sandra smiles when pretending a demand is a discussion. Not all at once. I don't have 20 grand for a wedding. You said you wanted to help. I do. There's a difference between helping and underwriting a luxury event. Her expression cooled. Grant's family is used to a certain standard. There it was. Standard. The word judgment wears when it wants to sound respectable. I asked for time. She said, fine, in a tone that clearly meant the opposite. A week later, the florist called asking whether I wanted the payment plan kept on my card. I had never agreed to use my card. When I asked how they got the number, the woman hesitated and said Chloe provided it at the tasting. I pulled over on the drive home and called my daughter. Did you give a vendor my card information? It was just to hold things, she said quickly. I was going to tell you. You don't hold things with someone else's money. It's for my wedding, Dad. That sentence is supposed to make this better? She exhaled like I was inconveniencing her. Can we not do this right now? Grant's parents are here. That night, Sandra texted me. Please don't make Chloe anxious over normal wedding expenses. Normal. That scared me more than the numbers themselves. By then, I was starting to wonder whether Chloe loved me or just needed my wallet. If there was one moment where humiliation stopped being subtle, it happened at a restaurant called Belvine, where everything came on wooden boards and nobody under 40 seemed comfortable unless a server was explaining salt. It was supposed to be a casual dinner with both families. Grant's parents were polished and expensive looking. Sandra wore a cream blazer she definitely chose because it photographed well. Chloe looked beautiful in a way that also seemed exhausted, like she was performing ease instead of feeling it. I came straight from work because the time changed twice and I couldn't get home first. I'd changed my shirt in the locker room and thrown on a clean jacket, but there was still a faint smell of machine oil on me. I noticed Chloe notice it. Grant's mother asked what I did. Before I could answer, Chloe gave a tight little laugh and said, Dad practically lives at the bus depot. I smiled anyway. I supervise maintenance for the city fleet. Grant's father nodded. Essential work. Chloe looked back at her menu. He likes to keep it humble. Such a tiny sentence, but I felt the blade inside it. Later I asked about the song for our father-daughter dance. Chloe blinked at me like I'd interrupted a board meeting. Oh, she said. We're reconsidering some traditional stuff. I stared at her. Are we still doing the dance? She cut a piece of salmon, chewed, then said, I don't want anything that feels forced. Something dropped inside my chest. Outside in the parking lot, I finally asked, what exactly is going on? She turned on me fast. This is why I asked you not to come straight from work. What did I do? She laughed once, sharp and disbelieving. You make everything feel cheaper just by showing up. I said, that was cruel. Sandra stepped in immediately. Daniel, not tonight. Not tonight. She just insulted my entire life. She is under enormous pressure, Sandra said. So that excuses it, Grant murmured. Maybe everyone just needs a beat. I drove home shaking so hard I sat in my truck for 20 minutes. Then Marcus called, and one question made the whole night worse. Then Marcus asked the question that made my blood run cold. I have been sober for 11 years. That matters because I earned it. After the divorce, I spent too long drinking in a quiet, competent way that fooled other people and almost ruined me anyway. I never lost my job, never hit anyone, never got hauled out of a bar. But one night, I looked at myself in the mirror, saw exactly where I was headed, and walked into a church basement to tell the truth. Chloe knew what that cost me. She was old enough to understand every year of it. So hearing that she had been hinting I might cause a scene because of alcohol felt like betrayal with a ceremony attached. I called her immediately. Did you tell venue staff I'm unstable around alcohol? She waited too long before answering. People asked questions. I had to manage expectations. Manage expectations? I didn't say you were unstable. You implied I was a risk. Dad, please. They were asking about bar logistics and family dynamics. You used my sobriety to make yourself look reasonable. A pause. Then, colder, you're proving my point. That sentence changed something in me. Until then I still believed, somewhere deep down, that if I found the right words, the old Chloe would come back. The kid who trusted me wouldn't weaponize the hardest thing I ever fixed about myself. That night Marcus came over and found me at the table with a legal pad. What are you doing? He asked. Trying to figure out when I stopped being a father and started being a narrative problem. Good, he said. Keep going. So I did. I wrote down dates. March 4th, florist called about my card. March 19th, removed from planning thread. April 2nd, Bellvine. April 7th, venue rumor. Then I pulled my bank statements and found 2 direct transfers to Chloe. $2, $500 in February, $1,800 in March. Both described as urgent vendor holds. I checked an invoice Sandra had forwarded me against the vendor portal and found the amount was padded by almost $1,200. Then Sandra accidentally copied me on a group email with Chloe and Grant. My name sat in the middle of one sentence that made my whole body go cold. If Daniel won't cooperate, we can say he backed out again. That word again did a lot of work. It turned a present lie into a pattern, like I had some long history of disappointing Chloe that everyone else already understood. I printed the email, then called the caterer, florist, and transportation company one by one from my kitchen table with my legal pad open. The florist confirmed Sandra had asked whether previous payments from the father could be treated as gifts rather than commitments. The transportation company told me a luxury shuttle had been added after the original estimate. In plain English, they kept upgrading things and drifting the difference toward me like I was an invisible emergency fund. When I called Chloe, I kept my voice as calm as I could. Why are you sending me bills that are not mine? Because families help each other. Families also tell the truth. You're acting obsessed. No, I said. I'm acting informed. She went silent. That silence told me more than yelling would have. The next breadcrumb came from Grant by accident. At least I think it was an accident. He butt-dialed me from his car, and through the muffled road noise I heard Sandra say, "If he just pays the catering, the rest will settle down." Then Chloe, tired and irritated, "I'm not putting him in the aisle after Bellvine. My mother said people already noticed." Grant said, "Then stop asking him for money." Chloe shot back, "Easy for you to say when your parents are only paying for what they can show off." The line went dead. I sat there with my phone in my hand, staring at nothing. That call mattered for 2 reasons. First, it confirmed this wasn't about one bad argument. I had already been demoted in private, and the money requests continued anyway. Second, it showed Grant wasn't innocent. He wasn't leading the cruelty, but he was benefiting from it while pretending to stay above the mess. Marcus listened to the recording and let out a slow breath. "They want your wallet, not your shadow." I rubbed both hands over my face. I still don't understand why Chloe would do this. Because Sandra taught her that if you call manipulation keeping the peace, decent people feel guilty resisting. The next morning, Sandra made the mistake that blew the whole thing open. Sandra called me at work just before lunch, using the smooth, honeyed voice she reserves for public fundraisers and private ambushes. "Daniel, can we be adults for 5 minutes?" "I've been an adult this whole time, Sandra." She sighed. Chloe is under pressure from Grant's family. They are making comparisons. Comparisons to what? To standards, she said. To image. To what kind of family she appears to come from. I stepped out of the garage bay so my guys wouldn't hear. And your solution was to tell people I'm unstable and hit me with inflated bills. No one said inflated. Padded, upgraded, massaged, pick a word. She kept going anyway. "Look, Chloe is trying to enter a different world. You may not like that, but you could at least not make it harder." Different world. There it was. Not a crisis. Not misunderstanding. Shame with better furniture. And me paying for this. I asked, "What is that? A sentimental scholarship from the embarrassing side of the family?" She went quiet. Then, almost bored, she said, "Nobody is asking you to be visible. Just supportive." That sentence burned through me cleaner than any insult Chloe had thrown. Invisible funding. Silent father. Convenient disgrace. I asked one more question. Did Chloe tell Grant's family I backed out of helping? Sandra hesitated just long enough to answer everything. We had to explain some uncertainty. When I got home, anger had changed shape. It wasn't hot anymore. It was cold and practical, the same mindset I use when a bus comes in with a hidden brake fault and everyone else is guessing. You stop arguing with the machine and start tracing the failure. I spread everything across my kitchen table. Emails, screenshots, bank transfers, vendor totals, the voicemail transcript, dates of missed calls. Marcus came over with a folder and portable scanner like we were building a case. "You sure you want all of it?" he asked. "I think I already have it." He handed me one screenshot. A woman who knew Grant's mother had posted about the bride's difficult father and how the ex-wife has done heroic damage control. I looked closer. Under the post was a heart emoji from Chloe herself. And that was the moment heartbreak finally turned into evidence. There's a particular kind of pain that doesn't come from being hated. It comes from being reduced, translated into something smaller and uglier by the person who knows your history best. I could have survived Chloe being angry with me. I could have survived hearing the truth, even if it was brutal. Dad, I'm embarrassed by where you come from. Dad, Grant's family makes me feel judged. Dad, your life reminds me of parts of myself I'm trying to outrun. That would have shattered me, but at least it would have been honest. Instead, she made me unsafe, unreliable, a burden she was nobly managing. That night, I almost paid the catering bill anyway. I wish that weren't true, but it is. I opened my banking app, stared at my savings, and did the math the way fathers do even when they know they're being used. If I emptied the emergency fund and postponed replacing my truck, I could cover most of it. I told myself maybe later I could sort out the disrespect. Maybe right now the decent thing was to stop the avalanche. Marcus showed up because he knows my patterns too well. He found me with my laptop open and said, "Don't. She's my kid," I snapped. "And you're not hers to spend." I stood so fast the chair scraped the tile. "You think I don't know how pathetic this looks?" "No," he said. "I think you still believe one last sacrifice will bring back a daughter who is currently more loyal to appearances than to truth." That shut me up. He picked up Sandra's email and tapped the page. "This is not wedding stress. This is coordinated." I sat back down. My throat hurt. So what do? Let everything collapse? "No," Marcus said. "You decide what help looks like when it has boundaries. And you stop letting them define the story first." Story. That was the real battlefield now. Not flowers. Not catering. Not whether Chloe wanted white roses or cream. It was the version of events everyone would carry into that venue if I stayed quiet. Embarrassing father, unstable father, cheap father, father who promised and disappeared. I opened a new document and started listing dates, amounts, screenshots, and exactly what I had paid. At 11:14 p.m., Chloe texted me one sentence. "If you loved me, you would stop making this harder." I read that text 4 times before answering. Because once you understand someone is using love as a lever, you either step back or let yourself get crushed. My reply was simple: love is not the issue. Lies are. The typing bubble appeared, disappeared, then my phone rang. Chloe never called when she could text, which told me she was rattled. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded. "Doing what?" "Keeping score. Calling vendors. Making everyone nervous." "I'm not making everyone nervous, Chloe. I'm finding out what I actually agreed to. You said you wanted to help me. I did not say I would fund upgrades I never approved after being told not to come. That's not what I said." "No," I said. "You said it was better if I didn't come." Silence. Then, "You always hear the harshest version of everything." It was such a polished cruelty that I almost admired it. "Hurt me, then tell me I misheard the blade." Before I could answer, she lowered her voice. "Mom says you've been bringing up Belvine to everybody." "I've talked to Marcus." "Exactly. You're making me look heartless." I stared at the wall over my sink. "You're worried about looking heartless? You have no idea how much pressure I'm under." "Then tell the truth under pressure." She hung up. The next evening, Sandra invited me to what she called a reset dinner at her house. I went because I needed them all in one room long enough to hear themselves. Grant was there in a sweater that probably cost more than my electric bill. Sandra had lit candles in daylight, which is her version of diplomacy. For 15 minutes, everybody acted civilized. Then Sandra said, "I think we all need to move forward with generosity." I put down my fork. "Great. Let's start with honesty." I asked one question at a time. Did I agree to the shuttle upgrade? No direct answer. Did anyone tell vendors I'd cover overages? It was assumed. Did Chloe imply I might cause a scene? That's unfair. Every answer was smoke. Then Sandra said, "You cannot blow up your daughter's wedding because your pride is bruised." I nearly caved. Then Grant finally said the words that froze the whole table. No one spoke for 2 full seconds after Grant said that. Grant kept staring at his plate. "It's also accurate." Chloe turned on him so fast her chair scraped the floor. "Seriously?" Sandra's face tightened in that brittle, polished way it always did when the script went off page. "Daniel, this is exactly why these conversations should stay private." I almost laughed. Private? You mean hidden? Chloe stood up. I'm not doing this if you're going to ambush me. You ambushed me with a catering bill after disinviting me. I did not disinvite you, she snapped. I said your presence might add stress. Those are not different sentences. Marcus, who had stayed mostly quiet until then, leaned back and said, Danny, show them. So I did. I pulled the folder from under my chair and laid everything on Sandra's dining table. Bank transfers. The email where Sandra wrote, if Daniel won't cooperate, we can say he backed out again. Vendor notes proving the catering balance was never mine. The screenshot of the Facebook thread and the transcript from Grant's accidental call. Chloe stared at the papers without touching them. Sandra said, You saved all this? Yes, I said. Because somebody had to. Grant finally looked up. My parents don't know all of this. That's convenient, I said. Then Chloe cried. Not dramatically, just with the stunned rage of someone losing control. You don't understand, she said. Everything with Grant's family has been a test. His mother kept asking which side was paying for what, why my father still worked weekends, why the rehearsal couldn't be at a club. Every answer felt like a judgment. And you decided I should fail that test for you? I asked. It wasn't like that, Marcus muttered. Looked exactly like that from here. The room got very quiet. I stacked the papers again and said the sentence I had practiced in my truck on the way over. I'm willing to pay what I originally offered, and not $1 more. Sandra's head snapped up. That doesn't solve the shortfall. No, I said. It solves my part. Then Chloe asked the question that proved she still saw money first. That should have been easy to answer. It wasn't. Because even after all the lies, Chloe was still the girl who used to fall asleep in my truck with French fries in her lap after soccer practice. Love doesn't vanish just because respect does. That's what makes boundaries feel brutal when it's your child on the other side of them. So I kept my voice even. No, Chloe. You did this earlier. I'm just refusing to keep financing it. Sandra jumped in first. If you cared at all about preserving this relationship, you would stop making money the centerpiece. I laughed then, because the irony was so clean. Money became the centerpiece when your side started invoicing me after telling people I was unstable. Grant stood and paced to the window, then back again. My parents are going to ask questions if the balances change this late. Good, I said. Then answer them honestly. Chloe wiped under her eyes with 2 fingers, angrier at the tears than the truth. You think this is about money and image because you don't know what it feels like to be judged constantly. That landed harder than she meant it to, because I knew it was partly true. I didn't know what it felt like to be a bride in her orbit. But she didn't know what it felt like to be judged as insufficient for decades and still show up tender anyway. I know exactly what judgment feels like, I said. I just never sold you out to escape it. Nobody had an answer for that. I placed one final sheet on the table, a typed summary of every payment I had already made, the original amount I had offered, and one sentence at the bottom, saying any further help would require a written agreement and basic respect. Sandra read it and scoffed. This is insane. No, Marcus said. This is paperwork. You people only hate it when it remembers. Grant looked defeated. Chloe wouldn't meet my eyes. I picked up my keys. You'll get the original amount by cashier's check on Monday. After that, I'm done being treated like an embarrassment with a debit card. I was halfway to the door when Chloe called after me. Not Dad, Daniel. And somehow that hurt more than every invoice put together. The fallout started before I got home. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I had 3 missed calls from Sandra, 1 from Chloe, and a long text from Grant. My parents want a meeting tomorrow because certain payment assumptions no longer make sense. Payment assumptions. I actually smiled at that. People always sound most ridiculous right before the illusion breaks. I didn't attend the meeting. Grant's parents could untangle their own mythology without using me as a prop. But through Grant's updates and Marcus's community grapevine, I learned enough. Grant's mother found out Sandra had been implying I was financially unreliable while still expecting me to cover traditional father expenses. She also learned that several upgrades Chloe pushed for, the shuttle, imported flowers, custom signage, some ridiculous late-night dessert display, had all been justified with the same phrase, my father will handle it. Grant's father, who had stayed politely detached until money turned messy, asked one simple question. Why was the man paying not invited to participate? Nobody had a good answer. The wedding didn't collapse. Real life is messier than movie justice. But things unraveled fast. The dessert display disappeared. The shuttle got downgraded. The floral order shrank. Grant's parents froze further extras until every responsibility was put in writing. Sandra called me heartless. Chloe texted me after midnight. I hope you're happy. Happy wasn't the word. At work, I was distracted enough to nearly sign off on the wrong parts order. That scared me more than any text. I have built my self-respect around competence. I do not bring family chaos into the bay. So I took an early lunch, sat behind the depot on an overturned crate, and admitted the truth. Even righteous choices cost something. That evening, Marcus came over with beer for himself and seltzer for me. You okay? He asked. No, I said, but I think I'm finally being honest. He nodded like that mattered more than comfort. The next day, a padded envelope arrived in my mailbox with no return address. Inside was a printed copy of the seating chart. My chair had been removed 3 weeks earlier. That seating chart should have destroyed me. In some ways, it did. Not because I still expected a miracle I'll walk by then, but because it proved the timeline with cruel precision. Chloe had already decided I didn't belong before she kept asking for money. She hadn't disinvited me in the heat of one fight. She phased me out, socially, financially, physically. Belvine wasn't the first cut. It was just the first one she let me see. For 2 days I answered no one except Marcus and work calls. I went in, did my job, came home, heated soup I barely tasted, and sat in a quiet apartment that felt less like peace and more like aftermath. Grief is strange that way. It doesn't only mourn what happened. It mourns what you can no longer pretend might still happen. Then, the Friday before the wedding, Chloe showed up at my door. No warning. No text. Just Chloe in leggings and an oversized sweatshirt. No makeup, hair tied back, looking younger and crueler and more tired all at once. Can I come in? She asked. I wanted to say no. I also wanted to hug her. I did neither. I stepped aside. She stood in the kitchen where she used to do homework and said, I didn't know about the seating chart that early. I said nothing. I mean, I knew it changed, but Mom handled the final layout. Stop, I said. If you're here to separate your choices from Sandra's like you were just a passenger, don't. Her jaw tightened. You always think the worst of Mom. I think exactly what the evidence supports. That stung her because evidence had become the one language she couldn't bend. She crossed her arms. I was trying to survive this process. And I was what? Collateral? Her eyes filled, but she held the tears there. You don't understand how humiliating it was when Grant's family kept asking about money and background and why you still worked with your hands. I took a slow breath. Do you know what was humiliating? Being treated like your dirty secret by the person I worked those hands bloody for. She sat down hard at the table. For the first time since this started, she looked less angry than ashamed. I don't know how to fix it, she whispered. I nodded and said, That's the first honest thing you've said to me. Then I told her the boundary I should have set years earlier. I love you. I will not fund access to me ever again. She looked at me like I had spoken in a language she had never needed to learn. For most of her life, love for me had always arrived carrying something. Time, labor, money, rescue, understanding, another chance. I had trained her to expect that if she pushed hard enough, I would eventually convert my hurt into help. She sat at my kitchen table for almost an hour after that. No yelling, no dramatic apology, just fragments. Grant's mother asking quiet, devastating questions. Sandra telling her image was everything. Chloe feeling judged by rooms full of people with cleaner histories and better shoes. Me becoming the easiest thing to edit out because I loved her enough to stay reachable. None of it excused what she did. But for the first time, it sounded like explanation instead of strategy. Are you coming tomorrow? She asked finally. No. She flinched, though I think she already knew. I don't know how to tell people where you are. I held her gaze. Tell them the truth for once. After she left, I sat alone at the same table where I had once helped her glue together a solar system model for 6th grade science. I expected rage. What showed up instead was grief, then relief right behind it. The relief surprised me most. Not because losing my place in her wedding stopped hurting, but because I no longer had to audition for my own dignity. The wedding came and went without me. Sandra sent one blistering text about my selfishness. Grant sent none. Marcus took me fishing that Saturday morning, even though neither of us cares much about fish. We mostly sat in silence while I relearned what quiet felt like when it wasn't waiting to be used. The strangest part was that the world kept moving. Buses still broke down. Coffee still got cold. The sun still hit my kitchen floor at the same angle every morning. Then Chloe finally sent the text I'd been dreading all week. Not I'm sorry for lying. Not I'm sorry for making you a secret. Just that things got ugly, the way people apologize to a room after they've thrown a chair. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I took the envelope marked wedding emergencies back to the bank and booked 3 therapy sessions I had been pretending I didn't need. I also changed one small habit that mattered more than I expected. I stopped sleeping with my phone on full volume in case Chloe needed something. I had been living like an unpaid emergency service for years. Therapy did not turn me into a saint. I was still angry, still hurt, capable of replaying Belvine, the catering bill, the seating chart, and the word Daniel in Chloe's mouth like a door closing. But it helped me name something I wish more parents understood before a crisis forces it on them. Love without boundaries turns into permission, but often enough to hollow you out quietly. A month later, Chloe asked to meet for coffee. Public place. No Sandra. No invoices. She looked smaller somehow, stripped of some of the shine she'd been performing under. She admitted Grant's parents had covered the final gaps, but not without making things painfully clear. Sandra was furious at me for humiliating the family. Grant was doing what Grant always did, trying to stay comfortable in the middle. And Chloe, with her eyes fixed on the table, said she had told so many partial truths during planning that eventually she couldn't separate what she felt from what she staged. I thought if I made everything perfect, she said, I wouldn't feel judged. And did it work? She gave a broken little laugh. No, I didn't forgive her on the spot. Real life doesn't heal in one coffee meeting. But I did tell her this. If you want a relationship with me, build it without guilt, image, or money. So that's my advice. Help your kids. Love them loudly. Sacrifice when it's freely given and truly needed. But never confuse being needed with being respected. And never pay admission to your own humiliation just because the person at the door shares your last name.